Hey, I'm Keza, and in this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to create a slime effect in Gimp. Now the first thing you want to do is go to File and New, and we are going to do a 1280 by 720 pixels. Okay, and for this we can just start off with a black background. And then what you want to do is go to the text tool, and if you change the background to foreground so you've got white at the front there, what you want to do is find a bold text to use. I think it's going to give you the best chances of making it look good. I'm going to do it in all caps. Control A to select all of the letters, and then we're just going to enlarge this to about there. That's fine. If you wanted to separate the letters, make them further apart, you just go over to the left side where it's got A and B. You just hit the arrow button up to make them further apart, arrow button down to bring them closer together. Now I'm going to change the font, and you can do that just by selecting the box here with the example. I'm going to try and find one that has maybe less, something like that. Something a bit more simple but still thick. I'll increase the size just a little bit more. Something like that. That's good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the Move tool, and I'm just going to click and drag over to the alignment. And after that, you want to click anywhere in the text. It's going to highlight the box, the text box with these little white squares. And over to the left side, you want to hit the horizontal and vertical arrows, and that's just going to center the text. Okay, so what you want to do now is make the text green. I guess you could have done that before, but it's not that big of a deal because you can always go back. And you want, I prefer to kind of go with like a mid light green. It really doesn't matter, it's just whatever your personal preference is, just some kind of green color like that. That'll work. And then what you want to do is go to the warp transformation tool. It's going to look like this, and select that, and we'll bring down the size a little bit. Again, a lot of this is just personal preference, so play around with it and see what works best for you, what you like, and then go from there. And what we want to do is just take away these straight lines, these sharp corners, because in slime you don't get any of that. So we're just gonna kind of, what I like to do is I just brush along the outside of the text, and when it gets to a corner, you want to be careful, because I kind of, you can really just kind of go off, and it just doesn't work. You don't want to do that. You just want to release the left click, click down again, release, click down again, and continue along. And this right here just gives it a basic outline of what the text is going to look like. So when you hit the Move tool, go back to the Move tool over here. It's going to be these little arrows. You can see that now the text is not so smooth, it's not so straight. So that's going to be the first step, and after that you want to do that to all of the letters, and then we'll get ready for the next step. I'm just going to fast forward and get the rest of them done so we can move on to the next step. Feel free to pause the video and do the same thing, and then we can continue together. Alright, so now we've got a basic outline of what the slime is going to be. Don't worry if some of it doesn't look exactly like slime right now. The imperfections are going to work for you. There's no precise way to do it. It's just you take your time and you just edit the bits and pieces to make it look more like slime. Like in this case over here, what you want to do is just from the outside, just kind of drag it in a little bit, click and drag in, just like that, so it kind of smooths it out. And then you kind of go around all of the corners and you just kind of you bring them in. And you just want to take out those, really take out those sharp corners. So right now I have the hardness at 34 and strength at 82, spacing at 10. Feel free to play around with those and again, just see what works best for you depending on what you're editing. You might want to change those a little bit. I'm going to finish up the rest of these corners and then we'll move on to step 3. Alright, that looks pretty good for right now. The next part you want to do, and this is the fun part, this is the really fun part, is creating the drips that really make it look like slime. It can be wherever you want it to be, just wherever the creative juices take you. Typically, you know, if you want to really make it look realistic, you go to them spots where you'd actually likely see drips happen. So you just kind of click inside of the text and you just slowly release the click, left click, and you drag. You could really spend a lot of time making this look really realistic. So it's really up to you how much time you want to spend on it and what you're using it for. I like bringing drips down from like the corners of areas. It makes it, to me, look a bit more realistic. And don't make them all the same size either. Just, you know, different size drips. You can make one really long right here, and then bring another shorter one. One thing you can do to make it a bit more realistic is make the curve here just like it's dripping down, like it's starting to drip down like that. I like that effect. I think that looks pretty cool. And you want a nice, you don't really want a pointy edged corner down here. A nice rounded, so you just kind of bring it up just a little bit, rounds it off. You know, and again, you know, they can be small, they could be long, or you can actually make them real thick, real thick drips. It's really kind of up to you. And just keep playing around with it until you got something that you like. I think for now that looks pretty good. Now what you can do next, you don't have to, and doing too much of it can make it look less like slime, so you gotta be careful, is you can create little patches inside the text. So you want to come over here to your eraser tool and bring the sides down, I think, a little bit more, and just kind of create just a little gap in the text like that. Come back to your warp tool, and you just kind of mess with it a little bit. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just something like that. Go back to the move tool, and it kind of looks like the slime is dripping away from the text, kind of leaving that hole. You know, it's optional. It doesn't have to be there, but sometimes it looks cool. After you do this, what you want to do, what I like to do, is create like a little border around the text. And to do that, you want to right click on your slime layer and go down to alpha to selection. That's going to highlight all of the text. And what you want to do, you want to come over to select, and you want to grow. This one is another personal preference, but you don't want to go too much over. You just want to create like a little border. I like around, depending on the size of your text, you can do about 5 pixels. And if you feel like that's too much, you could always hit Control Z to go back, which is at the top of edit right here. To go forward is Control Y. If you felt like 5 pixels was just not enough, you want to add a little more, you could always go back to grow, take it up by 1 more pixel. What you want to do now is create a new layer, and the layer has to be underneath the slime layer. So whatever the top layer is going to be what shows at the front of your design. So what you're going to do, you're going to come down here to this white box with the plus sign, create a new layer, and you can create it while having the slime layer selected, or you can come down to the background layer and do it there. And the reason why is because what's going to happen is that when you create a new layer, and you want it to be transparency as well, is it's going to create a new layer above the layer that you've got selected. So either you can go down a layer to create the new layer, or when you create the new layer from the layer that you're on here, you just click, drag it down, so that is underneath. And from here, what you want to do, you want to go over to the foreground box, click that. You want to click the green that you used, and you want to come down so you got a nice dark green. Personal preference, doesn't have to be that way. Try out different colors and see what works best for you. And then you want to come over here to the bucket fill tool, and just anywhere inside of that selection, you left click, and there you have it. You have a nice border around the slime text. If you don't feel that that's dark enough, Control Z goes back. You could always go back in and go for a darker green. Test it out, see what you think. Actually, I think that looks a little bit better. And then what you want to do is hit Control, Shift, and A. You can also find that under Select and None. What that does is that takes off the alpha to selection. So the next step that I like to do is create a little bit of a blur around the text. I feel like it really just makes the text pop a bit more. And to do that, there's different ways you can do that, and you'll hear me say that a lot in my tutorials. What you want to do is take the border layer, and you want to go down to these 2 little boxes here. It's duplicate. You want to duplicate the layer. Okay. What I like to do is I right click on that bottom border layer, alpha to selection, come over to select, grow. We'll grow it by another 5 again, and we want to fill that in again with the bucket tool. Okay, so it's kind of look like you're just giving it a bigger border, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. Control, Shift, and A. Okay, bring that over to filters, blur, Gaussian blur, and now you want to just bring that blur up. Again, personal preference, wherever you feel like it looks best, and it's going to create that green glow around the text, and it's going to bring out that border as well. So wherever you think that looks best at, it doesn't have to be, you don't want it too crazy, but just enough. but you see a little bit of a glow. We're going to hit OK. And the last thing we want to do, we want to go down to this background layer. We want to go to colors and then curves, okay? And you'll use this a few times in your designs, depending on what you're doing. I really like this tool here. I think it's really cool. What you want to do is you want to go up to the channel value and go down to green. And what the curves does, it changes the dark and the highlight tones. In this case, it's a black background, so we can't mess with the highlights tones because there's no highlights. It's a black background. So you want to left click and drag the bottom up a little bit more. And what that's going to do, that's going to turn your black background green. If you were to turn it up all the way up, then it just gets brighter and brighter and brighter. Those dark tones just get brighter. You see some of that blur in there as well. Again, personal preference, however you want that to be. I like bringing it up just a little bit, but you know, if you keep that green low, it's gonna hide that border. So if you want to bring it up just enough, so that you see that border and you see that glow as well. Hit OK. And there you have it. You have your slime effect. One thing you can do if you really wanted to, one thing I didn't show you earlier, and it doesn't matter because you can go back into this. The slime text layer is just a plain green. What you can do to change that, just to give it a bit more, is to alpha to selection that, and come over here and we're gonna make that dark green the background, and we're gonna change the foreground to a light green. So we've got the two greens here, and then over where the paint bucket tool, you want to click and hold, go to gradient, make sure that this is foreground to background RGB, and that's going to blend those two colors together. And on the shape, you want a linear. You don't have to have a linear, but you know, it's whatever you want, but linear for this will be good. So what you want to do is find a good spot, click and drag, and that's going to give that light to dark green effect. If you're not happy with it, then Control Z brings it down. Try a different area. You can go straight vertical, which is going to give it an even gradient coding throughout all the letters, which actually looks a lot better than going diagonal. And after that, you hit the arrow tool. Okay, and that completes that. Control Shift and A, and you got a bit of a gradient. I think it looks better than just having a plain bright green. And I think we are done. Thank you for watching my tutorial. More on the way. Please like and subscribe, and have a good day.